What's happening, Stokastic baseball fans? Terry McBride here, MLB Live Before Lock, part 2 on the day. I think this is our second Live Before Lock. Show's so nice, we had to do it twice. I'm here with my pal Gundacker. We're going to break down the old 5-gamer on DK, 4-gamer on FanDuel, because FanDuel can't figure out double headers. It's only been a baseball tradition for about 120 years, but give them some time. They'll get it done. Gun, how's your Saturday going, buddy?
You're so far so good. Every Saturday, different time for me and you to talk baseball.
Yeah, seriously, this was a weird one. We had surprise when we woke up. I wasn't expecting to be on a show at this time of day. I knew we had one, but yeah, we'll get through it. And they chopped up the day in kind of a strange way on the different sites. This is the third slate of the day for FanDuel, second major slate of the day for DK. So we'll talk it through. We'll figure it out, and then after that, I'm heading up to the Yankee game.
Well, hopefully you bring your luck with you, because, or maybe I tell you what, usually missing the first hour is a bad thing, but this week you just start the game in the 10th inning and go home.
That's it. Yeah, that'll work. But yeah, for me, I'll get up there probably if I leave right after the show, like, around the 4th inning or so. And that usually works out fairly well. Miss all the traffic, get in there, still get a decent chunk of the game. It's not too bad. Anyway, we are brought to you guys by OddsShopper today. You guys know OddsShopper. You can check them out, find all the best lines. We'll talk about them in a little bit. Dog's barking under the table because, hey, let's face it, it's been we haven't been doing all that many shows lately, so he's a little out of practice. But shut up down there. Quiet you. Anyway, hit the like, hit the subscribe, guys. That helps us out quite a bit. It helps with the YouTube algorithms and all that stuff for us. Helps you guys find out when we're going live. Got free stuff up on the site, MLB ownership projections. So there's still some stuff up there for relevant for tonight. All of the tools and projections for night slates are 100% free. So that's a great way to test out what we've got if you're on the fence about subscribing. But you guys have been experienced with all this stuff, all the great tools and content we talk about. So you know it's worth subscribing. If you're going over to the site, we also have a special Live Before Lock offer going with BetMGM. Bet $10 on any MLB line tonight, any line on this 5-game slate, and you can win $200 for free from MGM. So just go over there, bet any money line in the MLB, you get $200 for free in your account. Not too bad. There's a link down there in the video descriptions for that. So follow that up. We'll talk about OddsShopper again in a little bit. Gun, let's dive into this slate. Anything off the top for you that you want to call out, like shape of the slate, any weather concerns, anything like that that's kind of gnawing at you?
It seems like a slate where we know one pitcher and then we go from there. As far as weather, seem relatively clean. A little bit of a potential shot in New York, and maybe that'll help you out, but for the most part, it should be pretty clean.
Yeah, I think so. It seems like it's just going to be maybe a passing shower at some point here in New York, in the New York area. Right now, it's fairly clear. It's been overcast, a little cool all day, but I think we're going to get through perfectly fine in terms of actually playing the game, not having to worry about any postponement. So, all right, let's dive on in. First game up on deck. We've got the Brewers going up against the Giants in San Francisco. Eric Lauer on the hill for the Brewers and Alex Cobb going for the Giants. What are you liking in this one in terms of the pitchers? Are you going both, serviceable, capable pitchers? Are you going to these guys? It looks like they're in the public's plans at least a little bit.
Yeah, a little scumbacker this year, where I could hit both offenses for sure. Lauer's definitely regressed a little bit based on that little burst we saw earlier this season, but he still got a chance to give you a 25+% K rate. But on top of that, he is starting to serve up homers a little bit more, 1.8 homer per nine on the season. And this is one of those Giants lineup that, although it's very platoon heavy, it is one of my favorite lineups against lefties, especially when you have Evan Longoria in it, and he's back in the saddle here. And they've also added your yeah.
There he is.
Oh, it cut out for me. Dang, I was spitting fire too. Man, darn, I made a Yearman Mercedes joke and everything.
Oh man, God, I can't believe we missed that.
And now it's not organic. Wow. Okay. Yeah, no. Lauer's serviceable, but I do like this version of the Giants lineup, although they are platoon heavy. This is a fun lineup against lefties. Mm-hmm. We do get a little bit of a maybe a lost bump in terms of like weather. Usually this is one of those late games out there in Oracle, but it is kind of like in the middle of the afternoon by the time this game tips off. So a little bit of a boost in that regard. But Slater, Flores, Ruff, Longoria's back in the lineup. Mercedes, I love that lane there. And then David VR, big bat with power in the minors, and so far in short samples, crushing it in the majors. So like this lineup a lot. They are risky because you deal with the platoons and the swap outs, but that's just the risk we're going to take on a smaller slate. And the other night, this was one of the optimal stacks. So if you were one of those take the risk on the platoon teams, it paid off at least once in the past week. And then kind of the same on the other side. Cobb is one of the most unluckiest pitchers in baseball. It's been like this for like 2 years. Last year, it was the bane of my existence to roster him every 5 days, and his BABIP would be like 450 or whatever. It's same thing this season, a 2.8 expected ERA, but a 1.38 whip, a 4.57 ERA. We know the BABIP's through the roof, but if you were just a believer in analytics, you can get through at 6,200. Yep. And I think that's going to be one of my more high-owned SB2s on some of these lineups that have no max. And it looks like I'm going to have to come down a little bit on Urias with Trout in the lineup. So I might get to more comp than I should, and I probably will definition of insanity later tonight when he gives up 5 infield singles.
Yeah, and it does look like, the one thing with Cobb, I do agree with you, definitely a better pitcher than what the surface numbers might reflect. 296 xFIP, decent strikeout rate at 23.2%, but that price tag on the DK slate at 6,200, that's drawing a lot of attention. He's pushing nearly 40% ownership, negatively leveraged, the second most negatively leveraged player on the slate, pitcher on the slate behind Sean Manaea, who is just radically mispriced at 7,700. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but that's going to be an interesting inflection point for the slate because you do get a lot of savings there. You can buy some decent bats. Different story on FanDuel, 8,300. Not expensive by any means, but still drawing 25% over there, but you're not getting that same discount on the FanDuel slate. So it's a little bit of a different play between the two pitchers. Do you prefer Cobb for the discount or do you prefer Lauer?
Ownership withstanding, yeah, Cobb for the discount. But obviously we bring in ownership a little bit more here. Lauer still has that 1 in 4 chance of getting you a strikeout. Mm-hmm. I just like this Giants lineup a lot against lefties.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be an interesting spot. And it plays out that way kind of on the top stacks tool too. You're seeing Giants coming in with our second highest stack score on the DK slate at 12.5. Their probability of being the top stack is down a little bit, but they pick up value. They pick up from the ownership. So they're an interesting target for a stack. But at the same time, the pitching, you see Lauer is the 4th ranked pitcher on the tools, positively leveraged, not that highly owned for a DK slate at 13.3%. So really, really interesting spot to get both sides of, and to try and, just on either side of it, you're getting a little bit of positive leverage and you're getting a little bit away from the field. So it's just going to be an interesting inflection point. What about the Brewers lineup? Are you going to those bats at all? Because they're fairly low owned, especially on DK, everybody in single digits, getting a little bit more attention on FanDuel.
So, full disclosure, I'm sure you can relate. We're playing every team, right? Like today we can. So yes, I'm getting to them. They in my stack list, I got them about 8% exposure. So compared to our top stacks tool, looks like I'm going to be 3% over the field. So yeah, I'm over the field, but it's just a process play there. And if Cobb continues to be unlucky, I don't like necessarily picking on this ground ball rate, but it's just one of those. I'm getting there because I'm playing everybody. But if it was like a single entry or something like that, I'd be much more modest. I'd probably maybe get to a share of Rowdy Tellez in the 3 spot, a little RBI potential.
Yep. And throw hang up again.
God dang it! Why is this happening? I don't know what's. I'm here, right?
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
Yeah.
Rowdy Tellez in the 3 spot was the last thing we heard there, I think.
Yeah, it's one of those. I'm only here because of MME. I don't know why the internet shop. I have 1 gig. It costs me an arm and a leg a month. This shouldn't be happening.
We'll blame Tyler. It's probably him. He's like the midpoint, the through point there. So it's probably something going on over in his, I think they go out and like wind up the internet with a crank out by where he lives. So, taking a look at the Brewers lineup, you get McCutchen in the middle of it, only 2.8% owned, hitting cleanup for 4,400. Rowdy, who you mentioned, Jace Peterson, who's having an interesting little season, 250, 322, 442, creating runs 11% better than average. There's some interesting bats up and down that lineup. The Power and Hunter Renfroe in the 7 spot. So I agree, it's mostly a process driven thing, but there are some bats that it's easy enough to get out ahead of the field on. And it's not like you're taking total slouches when you get to a guy like Renfroe in the 7 spot. So I don't mind getting to a little bit more of the Brewers than the field here, I think. But I agree. Probably if I'm ranking it, it's probably 4th out of 4 in the 4 squares on this one, but definitely getting to pretty much everything. Let's move on to the next one, the big duel up in the Bronx that I'll be going to after this. The Red Sox with Nick Pivetta on the hill. Our Yankees answering back with Jameson Taillon on the hill. 9,100 on FanDuel for Taillon, 8,100 on DK, 94 on both sites for Nick Pivetta. Taillon drawing much more attention. Are you getting to any shares? Let's start with Pivetta since he's so low owned for that 9,400 price against the Yanks. We know there's some strikeouts to be had, but a deadly lineup that he's going up against. Would you be getting over the field, or are you kind of just content to be around the field, not rostering Pivetta at all? Where are you on him?
So I have none in my 20 entries, and 150 I've kind of unlocked almost all, and I get to looks like 5-6%. It's just one of those plays where Pivetta does have 23% strikeout rate, and the Yankees, as we saw again last night, they look at a lot of pitches, and sometimes pitchers can still strike out some bad calls, and Pivetta has that chance here, and he's still a strikeout guy. So you're kidding me, dog. This is so, yeah, his K rate's worth grabbing shares of, but it's not a warm and fuzzy spot. And at 9,400, I'm not expecting much. So I don't have him in my 20 or less, or my 20 entry build, but a little bit in my 150.
Okay. So yeah, full disclosure, I'm not actually playing this slate. I was in both of the early ones, and I'm skipping this one, heading up to the game, like I said. But I think I'd be getting a little bit beyond where the field is. They're 2.6% on FanDuel, 1.3 on DK. I think you can get a little aggressive. You can 5x that at 10% on the FanDuel slate. 15%. Get to 10% on the DK slate. And I don't think you're really doing yourself all that much damage. And like you pointed out, 23.3% strikeout rate over 103 and 2/3 this year, a 4.14 xFIP. It's not like he's a bad pitcher. So you're taking a shot against the Yankees. Obviously, you're taking a shot in Yankee Stadium, obviously with the pitcher, but it's such low ownership for a guy who is capable of finding 7-8 strikeouts across 6 innings against this team, is capable of pitching to a quality start. I'm willing to take some tournament shots on that. So I think that's an interesting spot there. What about Taillon on the hill for the Yanks? A little cheaper on the DK slate, around the same price on the FanDuel slate, drawing a little bit more attention, going up against what is a very good Red Sox lineup. Are you getting to shares of Taillon?
I'm actually less interested in Taillon just because you don't really get the strikeouts out of him. I think we were at a 19%, maybe close to a 20% carried on the season. Swinging strike rates less than 10%. So he might eat innings 5 or 6, but you might only get 3 or 4 Ks along the way. And if he allows one to Rafi Devers, which anyone is liable to do, I just don't know that he has a true ceiling that can break a slate in this matchup. So I'm not that interested. Shares in the back end of 150 just because we have the ability to play everybody, but no priority and none of them in my 20 max.
Yeah, that's how I'm kind of seeing it as well. I prefer the Pivetta side just based on the potential for strikeouts and the much lower ownership. I would have some shares of Tyon, but he ranks out in kind of the middle of the top pitchers tool here. And I agree with that. I think I would be looking to undercut by a little bit. You chop that in half. If you're still around 4 or 5%, it's easy enough to get there. And, you're not probably losing all that much upside. What about bats in this one? Are you going to stacks on both sides of it?
Yeah, every which way. I definitely, it feels like a spot where the Yankees should finally bust out. Last night, they actually had a solid lane of above average pitching for the Red Sox. And I know Red Sox fans have been missing out on that all year. We saw Tanner Houck, we saw Garrett Whitlock in the mix. I don't know that they would be available, to curtain call those performances. So I do like the Yankees offense to get it together. And I really like this version of the Yankees offense. No Joey Gallo in the mix. So very fun lineup. And there's really, I would say, no days off. 1 through 7 is the bulk of the entrance. IKF doesn't homer, and Trevino, I do like him, but he might be a pinch hit risk late in the night. Although I'm not sure who he would get subbed out for, or maybe Glaber. Glaber's not in the lineup, so Glaber might take his bat in the ninth or something, or the 8th. But yeah, I like the Yankees lineup a lot. And then the Red Sox lineup, Rafael Devers is just on a different planet. He loves Yankee Stadium. 1 through 5, I like a lot for the Red Sox. Verdugo just has a knack for performing against the Yankees. That's always fun. And then Duran in the leadoff spot here. Lots of speed, and if he can get on, distract a pitcher while Rafi Devers is in the batter's box, it just helps Devers that much more. Devers has one of my highest bomb ratings on the slate.
Yeah, same here. Nice little home run mark on him. And then Judge, Rizzo, Stanton on the Yankee side of things. Obviously, nice home run marks on those 3 guys. So if you're going to either team, you can definitely expect some power upside. It's a Yankees-Red Sox matchup. It's not a big secret to anybody. Somebody who is kind of getting, I don't want to say slept on because I still don't fully believe in it, but Matt Carpenter, 5% owned on the FanDuel slate at 3,500, first and third base eligible, third base and outfield eligible for an inflated 5,600 on the DK slate, but only drawing 1% ownership. Dude's been raking all season long. 20% barrel rate, 46% hard hit, 11 home runs now in 87 plate appearances. I still, like I said, don't buy it. I love that he's making that kind of contact, but it can't be real, right? It can't be real, but we got to go to it a little bit more than the public here, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, every time he's in the box, I hear the same love story about him finding his swing in the Rangers farm system and how his shoulder was hurting. And so the more I see it, the more I do start buying into it.
It's been a beautiful swing. I mean, there's no denying the actual swing itself. I don't know where this guy's been. I mean, he wasn't 100%. Even. Yeah, like this is better than he was before he got bad.
I think the rate of success is unsustainable, and obviously he's getting put in more positive spots. So regression to the mean on when you're seeing guys like Scherzer or power righties, but so far so good. And the FanDuel price point really lets you get to him, and they have the util spot too, so you don't necessarily have to chop between him and Rizzo and sweat that decision. You can just play them both here against Pivetta. I will say the last couple of years, Pivetta was serving up a little bit more meatballs to righties. This year, not as much, but he's still holding on to that 1.3 plus home run per night to lefties and an 11% walk rate. So one thing I want to see with Carp is will they throw him in the steal bases mix here, because they've been stealing bases with everyone else. Rizzo, I think, has one of his highest numbers this far into a season. So, but I'm buying into it. DK Yankees are really, really hard to get to. I would imagine if you wanted Yankees and Max, it's going to involve Alex Cobb. So maybe think of a way to get different at pitcher in that mix. But Yankees look really good to me.
Yeah, top 6 hitters in the Yankees lineup, average salary 5,700 on the DK slate. Pricey. Definitely a lot easier to get to over on FanDuel. We talked through most of the hitters. Do you have a favorite bat to call out from the Red Sox who's not named Rafael Devers?
Man, Verdugo, dude. He just gets up for these Yankee games.
Yep, I like that spot. 3,300, only drawing 8.5% ownership, hitting 5th. You can put him in a stack. You can one-off him there. So nice little interesting spot there. But I think they do play, top to bottom, both of these lineups. You can get to even the IKFs of the world, the Treviños of the world, the Jackie Bradleys and Jeter Downses if you have to. Jeter Downs for the dead minimum is drawing a lot of ownership for a 9-hitter, 15.4%. So maybe I'm living more in that middle between JD Martinez and Jackie Bradley, where everybody's in the single digits if I'm looking for oddball type hitters from the Red Sox lineup. lineup, but I do think they play. So it's interesting, and it's not that difficult to put them together there. Anything else to call out from this one before we move on?
Yeah, Jeter Downs, named after Derek Jeter.
Indeed.
I hope he doesn't do anything special like he did in his first Yankee game.
So let's talk about all the great stuff over at Stokastic. You guys get access to all the Stokastic Plus tools and content for nearly every DFS sport out there with a Stokastic Plus Platinum Pass. You guys have heard about Platinum Passes before. They include the full access to all the premium tools and content on Stokastic, including projections, ownership projections, the lineup builder, our premium Discord channels, everything that's up on the site for all the different sports that we cover. If you're a new Stokastic Plus user, you can save 50% on your first week of any Stokastic Plus pass. All you have to do is click the link in the video description below down there somewhere and activate the offer. You head over to the join page and use promo code MLB Live. All caps, all one word, MLB Live. Get you 50% off your first week of any weekly package. If you only want to play MLB DFS, that's perfectly fine. It's nice of us to give everybody permission. Head over to our MLB weekly checkout page instead and use this code to get 50% off your first week of our MLB package. Again, this is for new users only. Please note that Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and is not included in our base packages, but can easily be added at checkout. Join Stokastic Plus today. Moving on, we'll talk about OddsShopper in a little bit. Don't forget about that MGM promo. That's really the key thing to hammer home here, guys. It's $200. You go in there, you just make that bet at MGM. It's a $10 bet on any MLB money line tonight. And you get $200 over at BetMGM. So that's one free money. Go get it. That's an easy one to call out. Let's talk about the New York Mets. You just mentioned their pitcher, obviously a major target for everybody. Last I saw, game one was still going on when we started up the show. I've got Seiya Suzuki in one lineup, and he didn't come through right before the show started in the 11th. Has that game ended yet, Dino?
Looking at the scoreboard, I think so. It looks like the Mets won 2-1.
Okay. So they scratched one out and probably in the 12th there. But we do get game two. Max Scherzer on the hill for the Mets, drawing a ton of attention over on DK. Not on the FanDuel slate at all, so you don't have to worry about it over there. Drew Smyly on the hill for the Cubbies, not drawing as much attention. 5,800, nice little price tag, about half the price of Max, but probably half the price, quarter of the talent, something around there. So how much Max are you getting to compared to the field? And then are you getting to any Drew Smyly?
So with Max, man, this is for me. It's borderline lock, all in or all out, man. 63% ownership. So I was sitting about 80% myself, and I know that's double our chance of being a top two pitcher. But it's just one of those spots where he's miles ahead of any other pitcher on the slate as the most talented guy. The matchup is the lineup's not confirmed yet, but there's not really a Cubs lineup that's not going to strike out a lot. So it's just a big spot for him. And it's not one of the wind's actually blowing in. So it's not one of those maybe Max is fighting against 15-mile winds out. So I just have a hard time not seeing Max being by far the best play at pitcher. So I'm just going to bite the bullet here. I'm even coming in above the field at 60% with 80%.
Yeah, I tell you, this is one of those spots where I just don't really care what the ownership looks like, what the leverage looks like. He's just the apex pitcher on this slate in a very good matchup. I don't care what version of the Cubs rolls out of there. They're not going to be rolling any, superstars out of there that we're not expecting here. So I'm just going to be comfy going to Max Scherzer. It's not like the other starters on this slate are bums. In fact, it's a fairly decent, slate with a plateau of like mid-range guys, but there's no other premium pitcher. You can argue Sean Manaea on talent and price and everything there in that matchup, but nobody else on this slate approaches Max Scherzer. So yeah, I think you can load up here as comfortably as you want, up to over the field, wherever you want to be. If you want to undercut, play the strategy game, try and spread some shares around to other guys. That's one way to approach it, but I don't think you need to do that here with Max in this spot. He's just that good. Are you getting to any shares of Drew Smyly at all? He's around 5%, 5,800 on the DK slate.
I have none in the 20. I unlocked them for the 150, but it didn't give me any. So right now, no. But obviously, I wouldn't fault you for 5,800 SP2. Can you get you 10 possibly?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a lineup I particularly like to go after all that much, depending on what version of it we get here with the Mets. But I mean, Smyly, 18.2% strikeouts over 44 2/3 this season, gives up a little bit of contact, 9.7% barrel rate. So he's gettable, 4.17% home run rate, a 4.15 xFIP, 4.43 ERA. So he's fine. He's an okay real life pitcher. Is it likely that he's going to put up the biggest score and surpass Max Scherzer? No. But could he give you that just, chip in a chair SP2 start here? Sure. Would you put him in a lineup? Would you put him and Max together in a lineup if you're looking to get just down and dirty and cheap with a SP2 play here?
It's rough. I like on top of Smiley's just like being Smiley. I do have some pitch count concerns with him. Because he only thrown one game since May and he went 56 pitches. So I'm really just kind of expecting 70 as tops. So I'm not getting a big projection no matter what. So any blemish on those 70 pitches is harder to come over. But as far as putting them together, I don't think it's a bad, I'm just, if I'm playing Smiley, I'm hoping for 10 plus and counting as a win.
Yeah, you're just looking for that night where these other guys don't really come through and he gives you enough for that price if you're doing that. So that's why I thought maybe it would be interesting to take a look at it just based on where his price point is as compared to everybody else. Unless you wanted to go, Jose Suarez, Tyler Gilbert, who each have their warts that we'll talk about. It's one way to approach it. Not my favorite kind of a play. So taking a look at bats then, since it is Drew Smiley, what Mets bats are you taking a look at on the other side? I assume that they're at least a little bit interesting for you here.
Yeah, Pete Alonso and Eduardo Escobar have my highest 2 power ratings in this spot. I don't believe they have a confirmed lineup yet. No,
I don't think so.
Yeah, I would expect that Lindor, Alonso, Escobar would be feature spots for me. Starling Marte, I like quite a bit. We'll see if they lead off with the lefty here, if they get creative. And also JD Davis. He's somebody in my single entry right now on DK. He's 2K bare bones min. So if he doesn't make the lineup, I have to repackage that entire lineup because that 2K just made stuff work. So I'm hoping that he not only is in the lineup, but performs here today. But it's a really fun lineup against lefties. It's just they don't hit for a great average. You're just hoping that they come together with some pop. And Smiley has allowed almost a 2-homer per night in the last 2 years against righties. So all the righties should project fairly decent. But Alonso above and beyond with his 14+% barrel rate looks like a really good spot.
Yeah, gotta love Alonso here. I like that JD Davis call too. That's a good one. And like you said, you're just hoping you get the right night where they crash into one and it goes out of the yard. What about on the Cubby side? Is there any reason to roster Cubs against Max Scherzer here? They're not drawing any attention. They're cheap, except for Wilson Contreras, who's 5,300. Everybody is below 4,100 on the DK slate here, so super cheap. Any reason to roster him against Max?
Yeah, it's that Geico insurance plan, man. I have 80%, and like I said, there's really not if you're running 150, there's no reason not to get to every team, and especially if you have 80% Max Scherzer. So I actually do have Cubbies. I have 6% Cub stacks, but it's not necessarily a matchup thing. It's an insurance plan.
Sure. And look, it's reasonable. That's a decent chunk of Cubs. That's going to put you probably ahead of the field on most of these bats. So who do you like individually within that lineup or within, the lineup that you're expecting to see anyway?
Yeah, so hopefully the lineup comes out. Wilson Contreras, Ian Happ. I could get to Suzuki. Was really just the power guys, maybe Max. And we know Max is a guy that can allow homers too. So, and then if he maybe isn't long for this one, or even if just the bullpen gets 2 or 3 innings, but it's really just the power guys, and that's going to be your Wisdom, Suzuki, Happ, Contreras. And I don't hate a shot of Ortega if he's in a leadoff spot.
What about down toward the bottom of the afternoon lineup and a guy who's been at the top of the lineup in various points in the season, down toward the bottom of the lineup in more recent weeks? Chris Morel, kind of interesting, 15.7% barrel rate on the season, 40.3% hard hit, over 230 plate appearances, 9 homers, still creating runs, 27% above average. Any love for Morel down there? Multi-position, not drawing a ton of attention.
Yeah, for sure. And he stole a base earlier today, so I didn't know that was part of his game. He actually stole third base, and if you can raise the floor and put yourself in scoring position in front of the top of the lineup, if he is in the 9th spot, I don't mind him at all.
Yep, and particularly against Max, I think any little bit that he's going to be able to contribute is going to help if you're stacking against Max here. Anything else to call out from this one, or should we move on?
Max.
Is there a limit to Max? Like if you got hit, if it just returned like, hey, Max isn't 100% of these when you went through your whole process, would you just fire away with that? Or do you have an upper limit on them?
I have 100% in my 20 max, and I'm at 80% cap on the 150. I expect to get every ounce of it. That's probably not the smartest process for baseball long term, but every now and then there's a few pitchers that are different echelon, right? The DeGrom in his heydays when he was at 40%, I was always at 80%. And then Max compared to the slate, it just seems like it, like even Max's bad game, if he dropped a 2025 might still be optimal on this slate. So I just feel like the floor and the risk reward is fine enough. And I just don't really see that many times where he gets negative outside of an injury.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of times where he's going to have such a bad game that it doesn't even compete at the price with some of these other guys, it's just going to be so few and far between that I don't think you're doing yourself a disservice there if you just fire away aggressively. So totally with you on that call. Let's take a look. Let's knock out a piece of business here real quick. OddsShopper. Make your best bets in 30 seconds or less with OddsShopper. With hundreds of bets featured daily, OddsShopper gives you the edge you need in betting player props and game lines across all sports. Sign up for free now via the link in the video description down there. Everything's down there. Just make sure you guys are checking that out every time. You're not going to miss a thing. That's where the like and the subscribe are too. Just really, before you start the video, just scroll down, or while you're listening to it, just check everything out down there. Anyway, if you go over to OddsShopper, you sign up for free now with that link that we've got there. It's just a little sign up wall, no pay, no nothing. You get behind the sign up wall, you gain access to all of our proprietary data to help you make your best bets. It's got expected win percentages. It's got ROI included, uses the same DFS projections that we use at Stokastic to filter out all the best bets available and to provide the math behind all that stuff. Features a parlay builder with optimized parlays that you guys can enter. It's got an arbitrage tool that identifies risk-free guaranteed profit bets to make across sports books. It's pretty killer, guys. So make sure you're going over, check out OddsShopper. 2 S's in the middle if you're typing it in. It's also linked from the top of Stokastic. There's an OddsShopper tab. Not very difficult to find. There's also, like I said, a link down in the little description down there. We'll talk about the puppy promo with our pals over at Underdog in just a little bit, but let's jump over to another game here. Back to the FanDuel slate with the Diamondbacks against the Padres. Tyler Gilbert taking on Sean Manaea, lefty versus lefty. Manaea drawing a lot of attention on both slates, 45% on DK for 7,700. That seems like a misprice for the pitcher's talent for the matchup. I feel like that's cheap for Sean Manaea here. 10-2, maybe a little high on the FanDuel slate, but still drawing almost 30% ownership. Tyler Gilbert, on the other hand, 1.8% owned on DK, 1% owned on FanDuel. Very cheap on both sites. Is there any reason to go to Tyler Gilbert? We'll start there.
No.
All right. What about Sean Manaea? Talk to me about Sean Manaea drawing a lot of attention. Do you agree that that's a misprice at 7,700?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think this week is so we don't know how DraftKings pricing works, dude. They just randomly spin a wheel or something. I don't get it. He had that down game 2 games ago, but he's likely on this slate at AK, less than AK, is probably going to get you 16 plus, and we'll take 2X, and you're probably going to take 3X. It's a okay matchup. Sometimes the D-backs can be a little scrappy against lefties. Over half this lineup strikes out 16% or less against lefties, but Manaea is just too good of a real life pitcher. So I definitely agree that the price is too low.
So what about Manaea on FanDuel now? 10-2 makes him the most expensive pitcher on the FanDuel slate. He's projecting as my top pitcher on FanDuel because we got no Max over there. So we've got Manaea, we've got some Lauer, we've got some Pivetta, Cobb, Urias. I mean, you're familiar with the slate. Where does he rank for you on the FanDuel slate?
On FanDuel, so my highest at first was Urias. So I wasn't sure if Trout's going to be back, but Trout is back. Mm-hmm. I have him probably right up there as my second or third. He'll probably move back up to 2. And it would be either him or Urias as my top owned. It's a whole different world without Max, especially when we have 80% Max on one site is my safety bucket.
Yeah, definitely changes things up a little bit. So if you're looking for a change of pace, you want to get away from that Max Scherzer ownership, just pop on over to FanDuel where he doesn't exist. But Manaea drawing nearly 30% over there. I do think he's interesting. Like I said, he's my top end pitcher, ranking out a couple points ahead of Lauer and Pivetta, who are kind of right next to each other, ahead of Cobb. And I have Urias down a couple pegs, but I'm curious about him because there's certainly some strikeout upside in that Angels lineup still for him on the table. So he's a bit of a wild card here, but I think I'd be getting fairly heavy with Manaea. I don't like pushing 30% even on a slate of this size, but I'd be around that. I'd probably be over 20 into the 25% range on him on the FanDuel slate. We zip right past Gilbert, agree that there's really no reason to roster him, even on a smallish slate, 15.7% strikeouts, a 5.24 xFIP. There's just not really anything there for me. Does that lead you into Padres bats at all? Because it looks like a decent amount of the field's going to Padres bats.
Yes, absolutely. Padres, I have 12% right now. It's my third highest. Yes, Tyler Gilbert has a 15% K rate, 13.4% barrel rate, an 8 expected ERA in 25 innings. He doesn't miss bats. This Padres team looking a little bit better. I love Alfaro in the cleanup spot. Easy handcuff to Machado in most of my FanDuel lineups. And then a little bit of spotlight on, I don't know if I'm saying it, Esteury Ruiz. He's 2,200 on both sites. He's one of my highest owned value plays today. In the minors, he had a 1. OPS. He had 60 stolen bases and 13 homers and 291 at bats. So this guy has power. He has speed. And he's 2K. So I'm hoping for the best against a contact pitcher. And in the minors this season against lefties, he had a almost 400 batting average, slugging 816 with a 1.327 OPS. Now it is just 38 at bats, but so far so good. So if you guys didn't have that name jotted down, or if your model doesn't have stats on him, maybe pencil him in there because I like him a lot.
Yeah, potential beast of a player. Definitely a nice call up for them. They called him up, I think 2 days. We did our dynasty draft, our minor league draft the other day in the dynasty league, and they called him up like 2 days before it. And my buddy pinched him off the waivers for his active roster and just put him there so that nobody could draft him in our dynasty minor league draft, which was kind of a pain in the ass because seems like a nice little prospect here. Up on the top end of that lineup, we've got Jurickson Profar drawing single digit ownership into Cronenworth, Manny drawing a decent amount of attention, but kind of obvious that we want to get to Manny. You mentioned Alfaro. What about Luke Voit? 4,700, only drawing 13% ownership, 3,000 on the FanDuel slate, drawing around 25%. Is he a big part of your Padres plans if you're stacking pods? 10 home runs on the season, 219, 310, 395.
He's there, but is this better split against righties? Because I got a 105 ISO since the beginning of last year against lefties. I don't know if that's a happenstance or what, but he does have a 4+ rating and a bomb detector, and we know that's a big country boy with a power. And Tyler Gilbert is not going to miss bats, so yeah, I'll definitely justify getting there. But he wasn't like a major part of my plans. My highest, I have actually more Cronenworth than Voit, and Cronenworth's lefty. But yeah, I wouldn't leave Voit out.
Yeah. And even for more salary, I still think I agree with that. Maybe squeeze an extra plate appearance in there and just a little bit more on the hit tool. I agree there. Voigt's it's so weird. 15.4% barrel rate. Like against this pitcher, I think this is the spot where maybe you can get away with that because he's not going to have that 35% strikeout rate impact him really against this guy. He's going to be throwing beach balls up there to him. So maybe this is the spot where a slightly under-owned Luke Voit you can get away with. What about like a lefty Trent Grisham not drawing any attention down at the bottom of the lineup for cheap? Would you be willing to go to him against this pitcher?
Yeah. Also, I had to look it up. Voit doesn't have a homer of a lefty this season yet. He does have 5 double. It is crazy, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you would think big righty, like big. Yeah, that's bizarre.
It might just be a major coincidence. Yeah, Grisham. I don't mind Grisham. I'm not super enthralled with him, but if we like Ruiz and his stolen base propensity, it could create RBI potential for Grisham. So not a bad bottom of the order handcuff.
I like that. What about the other side of this one going up against Manaea? Obviously, you can attack a ton of ownership on both sides. DraftKings in particular pushing nearly 50%. If you're going to any of these Diamondbacks, you're going after a big chunk of the field there. So what are you looking at in terms of Diamondbacks bats? A lot of fairly low-owned, inexpensive guys on that team.
Yeah, so this is one of those spots where there is a range of outcome. If I simulate these numbers 100 times, I think the D-backs get to Manaea sometimes. Carson Kelly, Ketel Marte, Walker, Jordan Luplow, those are some guys I'll get down with a lefty. And outside of Luplow, like Ketel Marte, Walker, and Carson Kelly, they have like an aggregate 14% K rate against lefties since the beginning of last year. So if Manaea is not going to strike you out, he has a 25% K rate to righties. He also has a 1.31 home run per 9 to righties. So there's a world where the D-backs are pesky tonight. I think so. So I do have some D-backs stacks. I am sitting on 8% D-back stacks.
All right. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I think they're worth getting to here. And just for the idea that you can go after that much ownership on the Manaea side, I agree. There's enough range of outcomes in there where you can gain on ground on the field. And if it doesn't get there, it doesn't get there. But when you're rostering single digit owned guys, Christian Walker with all his power, only 7.6% owned on the DK slate for 3,900. That seems like a fairly cheap price for a guy with 22 home runs on the season on the right side of the splits. So I don't mind going there. What about like a lefty-lefty matchup for an Alec Thomas, who's only drawing 1% ownership, 2,800 down toward the bottom of the lineup? I like picking off these guys toward the bottom of the lineup when nobody's going to them. Are you at all concerned lefty-lefty for Alec Thomas? Decent prospect going up against Manaea?
I mean, he's another guy. He doesn't strike out a lot. I'm not getting like massive power numbers, but I am getting positive WRC plus. So he's doing something right. So yeah, I don't mind him. Not a core target or nothing.
Yeah, not somebody that you're looking to, grab a ton of one-offs or anything like that. But if I'm stacking up a decent amount of Diamondback stacks to go after that leverage, I think that's somebody that I would load up on a little bit more than the field, make sure I had more shares of. Similar story with Josh Rojas, 1% owned up at the top of the lineup. You obviously like the 2-hitter better than the 8-hitter if you're going to be going over the field on somebody lefty, but he's more expensive at 4,500 and, maybe not necessarily, probably more proven at the major league level so far than Thomas is, but probably also not the same caliber hitter just in a total vacuum. So I'm interested in both of those guys. And then, pretty much everybody that you mentioned. Carson Kelly, definitely interesting for DK. If you're playing cash on this weird slate, 3,200, I think that's your cash game catcher kind of obviously off the top. Anytime you see a fairly cheap leadoff catcher, makes a lot of sense to grab him, right?
Yeah, leadoff catcher's fun. This happened the other night. He was super chalk, and I think it was like an average to below average play. My main pushback today is that I get Alfaro in the cleanup spot behind Machado. But Manaea's ownership is going to be a lot higher in cash than Kelly. But you're right, leadoff catcher on the road. That's a lot of implied at bats to make something happen at such a cheap price.
Yeah, and 1,000 cheaper than Alfaro is definitely interesting. But you're right, the ownership too on Alfaro is definitely an interesting spot for cash games too. So something to consider there. Anything else to call out from this one? We've actually made incredible pace. This might be the fastest we've ever gone through a slate.
No, yeah, I have a lot of Padres and a little bit of D-backs. I don't know Gilbert, and I have a lot of Manaea. I wish Manaea was more expensive so I could be more pessimistic, but 7.7 is just really too cheap.
Yeah, Manaea Max, your top owned combo.
Urias is knocking on the door with Manaea.
Okay,
it's there. I was hoping Trout would be out though.
Okay, that's interesting with that much of a salary difference between those two in terms of the SP2 slots, because we know that you're 80-something% max, so those guys are going into that SP2. So you've got a decent amount of lineups with the double pay up there. Who's the value stack that seems to be going with those Max and Urias lineups?
So it's not so much a stack as it is a sturdy Ruiz, okay. And I had some JD Davis, so I'm still waiting for that Mets lineup to come out.
That's right. We need that confirmed JD Davis 2,000. Otherwise, you're swapping a lot of those Urias shares.
Those are some linchpins to my success or failure tonight, or having to recrunch in a panic.
Yeah, those turbo recrunches are a little ugly. We might have some cheap bats for you to swap in this next game that we're about to talk about, the old Battle of Los Angeles here. But did you have something to call out there?
Yeah, I was looking at my top own. I also have Mercedes. He's only 2,300. So Mercedes, okay. Ruiz, and JD Davis were my glue to get a lot of Urias and Max.
All right. So we'll jump into this Los Angeles game in just a sec, but let's knock out another piece of business here. You guys have probably heard about the puppy promo a couple times already this week, but Underdog, our new partners Underdog, have launched their Puppy 2 Best Ball contest for the 2022 NFL season, and you will want to reserve your spot before it fills up, or before it quickly fills up. Quickly fills up. Either way, before the thing's full, you guys want to get in it. With this, we're offering a $1 weekly access to our best ball kit through Sunday, July 15th. Is that today? That's
yes. Wait, July 15th.
Today's Saturday, yes. July 16th. So that's probably wrong.
I think we add one for tomorrow. I don't know if that's for sure though.
It's a leap month?
No. You said Sunday, July 15th, right?
That's what it says here. Yeah. But I'm relatively sure that today is Saturday, July 16th. So regardless, It's probably live through tomorrow, guys. We'll just say Sunday. The best ball, it's a $1 weekly access to the best ball kit through Sunday. That's $8.99 off the original weekly price of our best ball kit. So that's pretty sweet. Package includes best ball, season-long fantasy football rankings, underdog daily draft rankings, our best ball stacking guide, cheat sheets, premium articles, and more. To activate this offer, use promo code PUPPY, all caps PUPPY, at checkout, or simply click the link in the video description below. Told you, it's all down there. That's promo code PUPPY for $1 weekly best ball draft kit access. Make sure to also subscribe to our Stokastic Fantasy Football and Best Ball YouTube channels for daily videos from our experts that will give you an edge on the competition. And check us out on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well. A lot of social media stuff going on, lots of YouTube's going on. It's all happening, guys. So check out the puppy promo, check out Underdog. Make sure you're getting the $1 week access to the weekly best ball kit and all that good stuff that's in there. Hit the like, hit the subscribe for us. We got one game left to talk about out in LA. The Dodgers taking on the Angels. Julio Urias on the hill for the Dodgers. 10-1 on the DK slate, 9,600 on FanDuel, drawing 20+% on both sites. Jose Suarez on the mound for the Angels, not drawing very comparable ownership. 5,500 on DK, 1.9% owned over there, 7,300 on FanDuel, sub 2% ownership on the FanDuel slate. Are you getting any Jose Suarez?
I don't have any in 20, and looks like I don't have any in 150. I unlocked them. I just didn't get a good projection on them.
Yeah, I think that's fairly reasonable. Not much of a pitcher going up against a ridiculously good lineup. He does have a 21.2% strikeout rate on the season, over 41 and a third. Last year, 20.6 over 98 and a third. So, I mean, he can find some strikeouts from time to time. He's a somewhat serviceable lefty, but a 4.44 xFIP, a 4.79 ERA, 3.26% home run rate, 9.6% barrels. It just seems like a targetable pitcher, somebody I want to chase with bats. So I agree with you. If somebody came up with, at 2% owned on DK, if somebody told you that they were 6% somewhere around there, let's go three times the field. We won't even go to 10% at 5,500. Are they nuts? That's not totally crazy, right? Carve off some shares of some of these other SP2s.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between like a median outcome for Suarez versus like a Smiley or something like. I think if you're crazy enough to get the Smiley, like maybe Suarez, but yeah. the pushback is the Dodgers are terrifying.
Yeah, that's fair. Know that you're targeting the Dodgers, and it's probably not going to work out. But yeah, if you're like you said, if you're crazy enough to roster some Drew Smiley, then might as well go to Jose Suarez. What about Urias on the other side of this one? You've mentioned him a couple times as an SP2 for you. Talk to me a little bit about what he can do for us here against the Angels.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a strength of schedule thing, but he had a slow start this season, didn't have all his velo, and he definitely didn't have the swing and strike stuff. 3 of his first 4 games this season, he had an aggregate like 7% swing and strike rate. And then if you look at his last, I would say 8 games, only one of those games he had less than a 13% swing and strike rate. So he's finding his swing and miss stuff. And this is a swing and miss team, Angels. It would have been a lot more fun without Mike Trout, but Trout still gives you a 1 in 4 strikeout probability. So it's still a spot that I'm going to be attacking. Trout and Ohtani is just the story of the Angels. Get by them, and then you can dip into this 5 through 9 on today's Angels lineup. None of these hitters bat over 219 since the beginning of last year against lefties. Only one of them have an ISO above 100 against lefties. That's Joe Adele. And then outside of David McKinnon, who I will give him some love. I think his minor league numbers will catch up to him. Outside of him, they all have 20 to 30% carries. So I think there's a big strikeout matchup, and it has been for a while. You just check the pitchers against them. It's just obviously Trout and Ohtani back-to-back is where you're going to sweat.
Yeah, they're back to being that super top heavy team. And I think they're very targetable with a lot of different pitchers. And Urias definitely has the talent to find a bunch of strikeouts here and get through this lineup a couple times clean. It's really Trout and Ohtani. I mentioned it on the show yesterday. I was looking at Taylor Ward because he hit the waiver wire in our Dynasty League. And I was like, hey, for $1, I can grab him for the rest of the season. And he has been flat bad since the beginning of June. June and July have just been awful for him. I'm talking like 600 OPS, like just not hitting the ball, not hitting for power. So he's still sitting at a decent line for the season, 287, 382, 496, 209 ISO, 12 home runs. That's totally respectable. but that's around what he was like. He had those 12 home runs in the beginning of June. Basically, he had a 300 something ISO at that point. So he's cratering back to earth. I think you want to go to Trout and Ohtani here. And then you're dabbling around like the Ward, Stasis, and Adel's if you're rostering this team, maybe some McKinnons, but I'm much more on the Jose Urias side of things. Are you going to the McKinnon and Adel's of the world? Like, are those guys on your list if you have to swap out of those other super cheap shares of guys that we talked about? Like, are those your targets basically here?
McKinnon, yeah, I do want to spotlight him. We showed Ruiz a little bit of love. McKinnon's minor league numbers, he's a slugger from down to below as well. 1 overall OPS, 13 homers this season in the minors and less than 200 at bats, batting 327. You isolate his numbers against lefties, they get even better. He slugged 1.134 against lefties with a 723 slugging, 1.1 for OPS. And then he had 6 homers in 65 at bats. So 1 in 10 for pitchers is good. 1 in 10 for hitters is gosh dang elite. So and obviously that hasn't shown up in the big league level yet, but I also think much like Ruiz, that's not going to show up in a lot of projection models because they don't often incorporate the minor league stuff. So if that catches up to him, $2,000 is really, really cheap on DraftKings, $2,200 on FanDuel. And then Adel's another guy. He is a prospect, but we have a lot more big league sample to be pessimistic about. But McKinnon, definitely my favorite guy from the bottom of the barrel here.
I like that. Yeah. And I'll take some shares of Adele as well. You're getting a big strikeout number, but if he crashes into one, it can definitely fly. So yeah, if we're looking for some cheap pop, I think those two guys down at the bottom of that lineup. Now you do have to still deal with the fact that they're going up against Urias, who was the guy that you were trying to, pay down with bats to get to in those SP2 shares. I don't think it's a small enough slate, 5 games to deal with, rostering any hitters against your pitcher. So that's still something to tangle with if you do lose those guys on the value side, but at least there are some other cheap bats. So maybe you swap things around and go to a different expensive SP2. Like maybe you swap those Urias shares to a Pavetta at 9,400 or something like that, and then take those cheap bats as a workaround. What about on the Dodgers side of things, going up against Suarez here? Obviously, kind of an all-star team caliber lineup here. Are there any Dodgers that you wouldn't roster against this guy?
No, just no. The Dodgers are just nuts. Trace Thompson is the top of my bomb detector. I know he's batting 7th, and he might only get 1 or 2 at bats against Suarez, but just thought that's a fun name to be at the top.
Absolutely. Actually, you know what? Looking at it, he is second on the Dodgers for me. I have Mookie slightly ahead of him, but he's actually second on the board on the Dodgers for me. That's surprising. I wouldn't have expected that, but yeah, not bad. 12.5% barrel rate on the season, 37.5% hard hit, 35.6% strikeout rate in his 73 plate appearances, but we don't care about that. Let him make contact with one and see where it goes. What about Cody Bellinger sitting down in the 8th spot there, only drawing 5.5% ownership, lowest owned guy on the team right now?
Yeah, I think, guys like Bellinger and even Trace Thompson to an extent, these guys' bugaboo is their strikeout propensity, and Bellinger, 25% K rate. Well, we can heavily neutralize that. This year, Suarez has a 13% K rate to lefties. He hasn't allowed a homer yet, but he has allowed a 36% line drive rate. And we know Belly could do that. And he just doesn't miss. He misses bats, but he doesn't get strikeouts. It's kind of weird, but especially against lefties. So, yeah, I wouldn't leave out Belly at that price.
Yeah, makes some sense. And then just looking at some of these hitters, it's interesting. The DraftKings board in the lineup, it's just like every other hitter is 10% more owned. It's like 14%, 25%, 15%, 24%. So just a weird little way that this lineup is staggered. A lot of cost in this lineup. The top couple hitters in the 6,000s. The back half of the lineup is relatively affordable though. So I think you can stack Dodgers in a full 5-man stack easily enough and not sacrifice all that much. How much in combination are you getting to Dodgers or Yankees in combination with Max, if you're able to check that? Because that's your premium stacks from a price perspective and your premium pitcher from a price perspective.
Yeah, so the way I was doing that to still have premium Dodgers is a lot of 4-mans instead of 5-mans.
Okay.
And then, like I said, I used a ton of Ruiz, Yerman Mercedes, and then the lineups for the Mets came out. JD Davis is in it. Let it be known, Davis is my least favorite of the value there, but he's still a guy I'm just using where if he gets on base, I'm kind of okay because of what it unlocked for me elsewhere. So I'm using a lot of those value guys, probably more than I should. But yeah, I think to get the most warm and fuzzy Dodgers and Max lineups, you probably settle on 4-man stacks instead of 5s. And you 5 will fall, but 4 won't force in, double Lux Belly, Trace, or whatever, and still give you Mookie and Trey. Trey Turner's my highest owned Dodger right now.
Okay, and never a bad situation there.
Yeah.
All right. Anything to call out? You mentioned the Mets and the Cubbies lineups dropped. Anything to call out from those? Anything land weird? They look
Wilson Contreras isn't in it. Yan Gomes is catching.
Okay.
So that makes the lineup even better for Max in terms of not worrying about power.
Clean up Nico.
Yeah. And then the Mets lineup I think was literally as projected. Oh, maybe Jeff McNeil is in it instead of Guillorme.
Yeah.
So a little
McNeil,
lefty.
Yeah, McNeil Nito down the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, nothing overly wild there. Favorite pitcher, favorite stack for the night. Well, favorite pitcher not named Max Scherzer for the night.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean on Urias a little bit more than Manaea, but it's 2A, 2B between those two. And then for cheaps, I still leaning on some Alex Cobb to make the ultimate Scherzer and big bat stacks work. But Alex Cobb is just so unlucky that it almost feels like it's real.
Yeah, I think that is maybe going to be our key inflection point for this DK slate at 6,200. If he puts up any kind of performance here, and like we talked about, he's certainly capable, 23.2% strikeout rate at 296 xFIP. He just got to not get unlucky here, and he could break this slate or at least bend this slate in interesting ways. So that's definitely going to be a key spot and one to pay attention to on that DK slate there. Favorite stack of the night?
Man. It is the Yankees.
Homer.
I know. Yeah, I usually am pretty unbiased on that take, but I like their spot tonight. There's a lot of pressure cooking from this last week. They need to get out of there, and Stanton's starting to get hot. He does have a solid history against Pivetta, and this Yankees lineup is one of my favorite lineups I've seen all year. So I'm just, my eyes are lit up.
Yeah, solid version of it. And like we talked about, just not getting the attention that they should be getting on that DK slate. They're tough to afford over there, but everybody in the single digits, when you look across the board at FanDuel, yeah, you're dropping a game, but you're picking up so much ownership comparatively on the other side. It's definitely an interesting spot on DK. So one that I would also be looking to target there. Anything else to call out about this slate, or should we just punch out 2-3 minutes early and I'll go rush my way over to the subway?
Yeah, we need to get you there in time for Gleyber Torres' pinch hit homer.
I like it. If I'm getting there in the 9th inning, we've hit some interesting problems on the D train, but hey, maybe that tends to happen sometimes. Guys, we appreciate you hanging out. Hit the like, hit the subscribe for us. Tomorrow, me and Gunn are back for MLB Live Before Lock. We think it starts at 12:15, might go from 12:15 to 1:35, 1:45. We're not really sure what the schedule looks like, but look for us in the afternoon, in the hour or so before lock. We'll be here 2 to 3 after that. NASCAR Live Before Lock with Jason Floyd and Chris Pinnell tomorrow. So loaded day of content tomorrow. Make sure you're taking advantage of that BetMGM promo. Get yourself $200 for betting $10 on any MLB line tonight. MLB Live is your promo code for 50% off your first week of any package at the site. Puppy's your promo code for the Underdog thing, the $1 weekly access to best ball. All kinds of stuff going on at Stokastic. Gun, tell them where they can find you.
First of all, we need 100 likes or I'm not getting out of bed in the morning.
Oh, forget it.
I need it.
Come on.
YouTube.com/Gundacker. Twitter's the same.
There we go. I appreciate it, man. Guys, it's been fun. Good luck tonight.